You're looking at a building that pretty much defies logic, a skyscraper that literally bends back on itself. Today, we're diving into the incredible and pretty controversial story behind one of modern architecture's most famous structures, the CCTV headquarters in Beijing. I mean, just look at it. You've got two towers leaning into each other, and they're connected by this massive overhang that jets out 75 meters. Seriously, by any normal standard, a building shaped like this should not be able to support its own weight. So the big question is, how on earth is it still standing? Well, to answer that, we've got to go back to the very beginning, to the start of this wild architectural puzzle and the massive ambition that brought it to life. Okay, so picture this. It's the early 2000s, and China's central television has totally outgrown its old headquarters. They wanted a new landmark building, something that would be a real symbol of China stepping into the 21st century. The stakes were incredibly high, and the scale was just immense. First off, let's talk about height. At 768 feet tall with 51 stories, this thing was designed to be a huge presence on the Beijing skyline. And then there's the sheer floor space. Over 5 million square feet. To put that in perspective, that's more than double the size of Grand Central Station in New York. This wasn't just a building. It was basically meant to be a city within a city. And the price tag for all this ambition? A cool $900 million. Yeah, this was way more than just another office building. It was a monumental investment. So with a project of this size and cost, you'd probably expect a classic soaring skyscraper, right? Well, the winning design was something else entirely. The Dutch architectural firm OMA, led by Rem Koolhaas and Ole Scharen, came in with this totally radical concept. Instead of going for the tallest skyscraper, they proposed a continuous loop. The big idea was to bring every part of making television, from the office work to the actual broadcasting, into one single, flowing, interconnected space. Now, this design, it was an absolute engineering nightmare. A normal skyscraper is easy. The weight goes straight down into the ground. But with this loop, there is no direct vertical path for the load. The whole building is constantly being twisted by these extreme forces, especially at those corners where the towers meet the overhang. Those joints had to be stronger than the columns themselves. So how in the world did they solve this? One of the most brilliant tricks was something called staged deformation analysis. Get this. The engineers actually built the two leaning towers slightly out of alignment, on purpose. Then, when they locked that massive horizontal section in place, gravity took over, pulling the whole thing down into its perfectly stable final shape. I mean, how clever is that? So, construction kicks off in 2004, and by 2008, the outside is done. It's already becoming this incredible icon on the skyline. But just as the project was getting close to the finish line, disaster struck. Everything seemed to be going smoothly until February 9th, 2009. A huge fire broke out. Not in the main tower, thankfully, but in the building right next to it, the Television Cultural Center, which was part of the whole complex. This single event would end up delaying the project's grand opening by years. And the cause was just unbelievable. It was a massive, unauthorized fireworks display set off by CCTV itself to celebrate the Chinese New Year. Even though the police and fire department had warned them not to, they went ahead with a display that had nearly 700 high-powered fireworks. The fire just tore through the nearly finished TVCC building for hours. And tragically, the blaze came with a real human cost. One firefighter lost his life trying to battle that inferno. The financial hit was huge. On a building that cost $730 million to build, the fire caused an estimated $23.4 million in direct damages alone, not to mention setting back its completion for years. So the fire was obviously a public relations nightmare, but even after the building was finally fixed up and opened, it ran into a whole different kind of crisis, a cultural and political backlash. You see, while its official name is simply the CCTV headquarters, the locals in Beijing pretty quickly came up with their own name for it, Da Ku Chao, which basically translates to big pants. It's kind of funny, but also a little bit mocking, and it really shows how some people felt about its strange shape. And that feeling went all the way to the top. In 2014, China's President Xi Jinping made a public call to end weird architecture. A lot of people took that as a direct shot at the CCTV tower, and it sparked this huge debate about national identity and whether China should be importing these foreign designs. Of course, the architect Rem Koolhaas defended his work. He came out and argued that, actually, China benefits from ambitious, forward-thinking designs like his because they push the boundaries of what's possible and they start important conversations. So, after all the engineering challenges, that devastating fire, and all the political heat, what's the building's legacy today? Well, it's complicated. The building definitely had a rough start. It stayed half empty for years. But then, in 2013, it won the award for Best Tall Building overall. Today, you just can't imagine the Beijing skyline without it, and it even has an observation deck and tours for visitors. So whether you love it or hate it, the tower really did spark a global conversation about what a building can and should be. And for the firm, Omanama, this wasn't just some one-off crazy design. They've continued to create these boundary-pushing buildings all over the world, like the Shenzhen Stock Exchange or the Seattle Central Library. The CCTV tower was a really bold statement, but it was just one part of a much bigger architectural vision. And that really brings us to the final question, one that the story of this building makes you ask. Where do we draw the line between something that's just weird and something that's actually visionary? At what point does a huge risk pay off and become an icon?